The rain whispered against the window pane, a soft, persistent rhythm against the silence of the old library. Ayan sat hunched over his typewriter, the blank page mocking him. He was a writer of passions, of the secret language of the skin, but his own well had run dry. The air, thick with the scent of old paper and rain, felt heavy, suffocating. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration, a tight knot in his chest. The heavy oak door creaked open, and she walked in. It wasn't a grand entrance, but for Ayan, the entire room shifted on its axis. Raindrops clung to her dark hair like tiny jewels, and her coat was damp, outlining the subtle curve of her shoulders. She moved with a quiet grace between the towering shelves, and the soft sound of her footsteps was a counterpoint to the frantic beating of his own heart. He lifted his head, his breath catching in his throat. Her name, he would later learn, was Meher. She stopped a few feet from his table, her fingers ghosting over the spines of books. He watched her, unable to look away. He saw a universe of stories in the line of her neck, a deep and soulful poetry in the way she tilted her head. She was searching for a book, but Ayan felt as if he was the one who had been found. A heavy, leather-bound volume slipped from her grasp, thudding softly onto the carpeted floor. Before he could think, Ayan was on his feet, moving towards her. He knelt to retrieve it, his hand covering hers as they both reached for it at the same time. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot up his arm. Her skin was cool from the rain, but burned against his like a brand. "It seems this one was waiting for you," he said, his voice huskier than he intended. She looked at him then, truly looked, and her eyes were deep pools of quiet curiosity. A blush crept up her neck, but she didn't pull her hand away. A silent moment stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions and a palpable, magnetic pull. The librarian announced that the library was closing in 5 minutes. The spell was broken. Panic flared in Ayan's chest at the thought of her walking out, disappearing back into the rainy night. Words, which had failed him for weeks, suddenly tumbled out. "The rain is getting worse," he said, his voice urgent. "Let me walk you home. Or we could find a place for coffee." She accepted with a quiet nod. Outside, the city was a blur of neon lights reflected on wet asphalt. Ayan held his large black umbrella over them, a small, intimate world shielding them from the storm. She had to stand close, her shoulder pressing against his arm, and the warmth of her body seeped through his coat, a welcome fire against the cold. "What were you writing?" she asked, her voice soft beneath the drumming of the rain on the umbrella. "A love story," he admitted, "but I'm stuck. I can't find the right words." She looked up at him, her face illuminated by the passing headlights. "Maybe some stories don't need words," she whispered. They walked without a destination, their path guided by an unspoken understanding. Every accidental brush of their hands, every shared glance, was a line in a new story they were writing together. The air between them was thick, with a tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. He could smell the scent of her rain-damp hair, a clean, floral fragrance that he knew he would never forget. They found themselves in front of his apartment building. The walk had ended, but neither of them wanted it to be over. The question hung in the air between them, unspoken but deafening. "I live here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Would you like to come up, to get out of the rain?" Her yes was so quiet he almost missed it. Inside his apartment, the silence was different. It wasn't empty. It was full of anticipation. He took her wet coat, his fingers brushing her neck, and she shivered. He watched a single drop of rain trace a path from her temple down her jaw, and he was overcome with the desire to catch it with his lips. He didn't, not yet. He led her into the living room, the space filled with books and the quiet hum of the city outside. He watched her as she took it all in, her gaze lingering on the typewriter on his desk. She turned to face him, and in that moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. He closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. He raised a hand, his thumb gently stroking her cheek, wiping away the lingering dampness of the rain. She leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. It was all the invitation he needed. He lowered his head and kissed her. It started softly, a question, a tentative exploration, but her response was immediate, a soft sigh that he swallowed. Her hands came up to tangle in his hair, pulling him closer, and the kiss deepened, becoming a desperate, hungry thing. It was a release of all the tension, all the unspoken words, all the longing that had been building since she first walked into the library. The kiss was a story in itself. It spoke of lonely nights and a sudden, unexpected discovery. It was a promise of passion, a confession of desire. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, their foreheads resting against each other. The journey from the library to his apartment felt like a lifetime, and yet it was only the first sentence of their first chapter. Without a word, he took her hand and led her towards the bedroom. Each step was deliberate, a conscious decision. The shedding of his jacket, the unbuttoning of her blouse, the soft whisper of fabric falling to the floor. It was a silent, sacred dance of revelation. He looked at her in the soft glow of the bedside lamp, his heart aching with a feeling so intense it was almost painful. She was beautiful, a masterpiece of shadow and light. He traced the line of her collarbone with his finger, his touch reverent. She was no longer a stranger from the rain, but the missing stanza to his life's poem. She pulled him down onto the bed, their bodies meeting with a soft sigh. Skin against skin, they discovered each other's secrets. His hands explored the curve of her waist, the dip of her spine. Her fingers mapped the muscles of his back, the rhythm of his heart beating against hers. And in the quiet of the room, with the rain as their only witness, they spoke a language older than words. It was a silent story of touch and breath and soul, a perfect, soaring symphony of sensation. The world outside fell away, leaving only the universe they created between them, a blinding flash of light and a soft, lingering warmth. As the first light of dawn filtered through the window, they lay tangled in the sheets, their bodies sated, their souls quiet. The rain had stopped. He turned his head on the pillow and looked at her, sleeping peacefully beside him. The blank page in his typewriter no longer seemed daunting. He had found his story. It was her,